Happy birthday, Riley. I've got something for you. Open it.
You've been acting mysterious all week. What is it this time?
Go ahead and see for yourselves.
Happy birthday, Riley. Open it. She had no idea that envelope would end her marriage in front of 200 people. Riley Monroe smiled at her husband, thinking it was another one of his surprises. She had no idea he'd spent the last 3 weeks planning her public humiliation instead. And she had no idea that by the end of the night, she would be the one holding all the power in that room. The ballroom lights dimmed just enough to make the chandeliers sparkle. Riley sat at the head table in a soft gold dress, turning 40 years old, surrounded by everyone she thought loved her. Braden Foster, her husband of 12 years, reached into his tailored jacket and pulled out a thick cream envelope. He slid it across the table toward her with a small, practiced smile. "You've been acting mysterious all week," Riley teased, reaching for the ribbon. "What is it this time?" "Open it," Braden said. The orchestra stopped playing mid-song. 200 guests, executives, old friends, reporters invited to cover the party, turned to watch. Riley untied the ribbon. Her smile faded the second she read the first line. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Her fingers froze around the paper. The whole ballroom went silent, like someone had pulled the sound out of the room. Braden leaned back in his chair and crossed one leg over the other, completely at ease. "I figured there's no better time to tell everyone the truth," he said, loud enough for every table to hear. Gasps rippled across the room. One of Riley's closest friends whispered, "Please tell me this is a joke." "It isn't," Braden said before Riley could speak. He stood, picked up a microphone like he'd rehearsed the motion 100 times, and looked out at the crowd. "For years, everyone here has believed I had the perfect marriage." He laughed, a short, cold laugh. "I didn't." Riley looked up at him slowly. Her lips parted. "Braden." "No," he cut her off. "You've had your chance." The guests shifted in their seats, uncomfortable, unsure whether to watch or look away. At a nearby table, Walter Foster, Braden's father, and the man who built the company Braden now ran, sat completely still. His sharp eyes never left his son. "I've spent years pretending to be happy," Braden continued, "while living with a woman who controls every part of my life." Riley blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, now you're confused." He smirked. "You controlled where we traveled. I asked your opinion. You controlled our home. I decorated our home. You controlled every conversation. I supported you," Riley said quietly. He chuckled, like she'd just proven his point. "Exactly." A few guests exchanged uneasy glances. The accusations sounded stretched, almost rehearsed, because they were. Riley stood slowly, smoothing her dress. "If this is because of yesterday, we can talk about it privately." "No." Braden pointed toward the crowd. "Tonight, everyone deserves to know who you really are." The words landed like thunder. A woman at the next table covered her mouth. Someone quietly lifted a phone to start recording. Riley's voice trembled, just slightly. "Please don't do this." "I already did it," Braden said, tapping the papers on the table. "I signed every page." He looked around the room, chin lifted like he was accepting an award. "And before anyone judges me, I found someone who actually appreciates me." The ballroom erupted into whispers. Riley turned. Across the room stood a woman in a fitted emerald dress, poised, confident, clearly waiting for this exact moment. Peyton Vance. Riley recognized her instantly. She'd seen her at company events before, always a few tables away, always a little too interested in Braden's conversations. Peyton didn't look embarrassed. She smiled and gave a small wave, like she'd been invited to a party instead of an execution. Braden crossed the room and slid his arm around Peyton's waist. "Meet the woman who reminds me what happiness feels like." Riley stared at the two of them. "You brought her here." "I wanted honesty for my birthday," Braden said. "I wanted closure." Walter finally spoke, his deep voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Braden, sit down." Braden looked at his father. "No, Dad. You've embarrassed your wife enough." "No," Braden said, smiling wider. "I've only just begun." Riley looked down at the divorce papers in her hands. For several long seconds, she didn't move. She didn't cry. She just breathed. Then she folded the papers neatly, slid them back into the envelope, looked directly at her husband, and smiled. Not a broken smile. Not a nervous one. Calm. Almost peaceful. Braden's confidence flickered. What are you smiling about? I was just thinking, Riley said, that this evening turned out exactly the way it needed to. The room fell quiet again. Peyton frowned. Braden laughed, but it came out thinner this time. You finally lost it. Maybe. Riley glanced toward the orchestra. Gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner for a few more minutes. Braden's eyebrow rose. What are you doing? She ignored him, picked up her champagne glass instead. I think everyone deserves another drink. The guests looked at each other, confused. But Walter's expression shifted. He knew that smile. He'd seen it exactly once before. The week Riley had quietly kept the company from collapsing, years ago, and never told a soul it was her. Braden turned back to the crowd, laughing louder now, performing again. Look at her, pretending none of this is happening. Riley set her glass down. No, I'm simply deciding the order. The order of what? The order in which the truth comes out. He rolled his eyes. There's no truth left to tell. Oh, Riley said, meeting his eyes without blinking. There is. For the first time all night, his confidence cracked, just for a second. Peyton stepped forward, voice dripping with fake sympathy. Riley, you deserve someone who actually loves you. Riley turned to face her fully. You must be Peyton. I've heard so much about you. I'm sure you have. I never wanted to hurt you, Peyton said. Really? Riley tilted her head. Then why are you here? Peyton glanced at Braden. He answered for her. Because she has nothing to hide. Interesting, Riley said quietly. Braden folded his arms. You know what's interesting? You still haven't signed. I've had less than 5 minutes. You don't need 5. I read contracts before I signed them, Riley said. He smirked. You won't find anything. I'm not looking for mistakes. Then what are you looking for? Timing. Walter's eyes narrowed at that single word. It caught his attention immediately. Braden scoffed. You've always loved playing games. No, Riley said, glancing toward the ballroom entrance. I've simply learned patience. He followed her gaze and saw nothing but hotel staff and waiters. He laughed. You're hoping someone walks through that door and saves you. No, Riley said softly. I'm waiting for someone to arrive. Peyton crossed her arms. Who? Riley checked the thin gold watch on her wrist. Actually, right on time. The ballroom doors opened slowly. Every head turned. 3 people walked in. A gray-haired attorney carrying a leather briefcase. A woman holding a thick folder. A younger man wheeling in a projector case. Braden's smile disappeared. His heartbeat picked up. Who are they? Riley finally looked at him directly. The reason I never interrupted your speech. The attorney walked straight to Riley and handed her a sealed envelope. She thanked him quietly. Walter stood for the first time all evening, his face tight with concern. Braden took a step forward. What is this? Riley opened the envelope calmly. You wanted everyone to know the truth. She pulled out several documents. I think that's a wonderful idea. She looked around the room, table by table, then back at him. So let's tell them everything. For the first time that night, Braden didn't feel like the man in control anymore. The projector screen lowered from the ceiling. Every conversation in the room died at once. Braden forced a laugh. So this is your big comeback. Riley didn't answer him. She turned to the technician instead. Would you connect the laptop, please? Of course, Mrs. Foster. Peyton leaned close to Braden and whispered, She's bluffing. She has to be. Riley took the wireless microphone from the attorney. First, she said, calm and clear, I want to thank everyone for coming to what has become a very unforgettable birthday. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. I know some of you expected tears. I almost disappointed myself. Braden smirked. There she is, finally admitting she lost. Did I? Riley said. The projector flickered on. A single photograph appeared. A family picture, taken 12 years earlier. This was taken the week after our wedding, Riley said. Back then, Braden wasn't a CEO. He wasn't even a vice president. Another image appeared, a cramped, outdated office, boxes stacked in the corners, the Foster Industries logo faded and peeling on the wall. Back then, Riley continued, this company was drowning in debt, weeks from being sold off in pieces. Several older executives exchanged surprised looks. They remembered those years, the ones nobody liked to talk about. Braden laughed nervously. What does this have to do with anything? Everything, Riley said, and clicked the remote. A financial statement filled the screen. Losses, default notices, bank warnings. Whispers spread table to table. I remember this, someone murmured. We almost lost everything. Another voice added. Braden's jaw tightened. Riley looked straight at him. Do you remember the emergency board meeting everyone still talks about? Of course. You gave a speech afterward. You said you'd found a way to save the company. I did, he said, chin lifting proudly. Riley's expression didn't change. No, you didn't. The room went dead silent. Braden laughed, too loud. Now you're rewriting history. My father died 6 months before that crisis hit, Riley said, her voice softening for the first time all night. He left me a trust fund. I was going to use it to open my own design studio. She paused. Then I watched my husband's family fall apart, and I made a choice instead. Another document filled the screen, a wire transfer, several $1,000,000. The recipient listed clearly, Foster Industries. The room gasped. Braden's breathing went shallow. No. Riley clicked again. Loan guarantees. Investment agreements. Private contracts, every one carrying her signature. I gave up my inheritance to save this company, she said. An older board member stood slowly. I remember these. We were told the investor wanted to stay anonymous. Walter nodded once. She did. Every eye in the room turned to Riley. Peyton leaned toward Braden. You never told me this. Braden said nothing. I believed marriage meant building something together, Riley said. So I let everyone believe you were the one who saved it. An executive shook his head. All these years, we applauded the wrong person. Braden finally snapped. So what? You loaned the company money. That's your defense? It doesn't change anything. He stepped closer, voice lower now, meaner. You still couldn't satisfy me as a wife. A ripple of frowns crossed the room. Even Walter closed his eyes, like he barely recognized the son standing in front of him. Riley didn't flinch. I wondered how long it would take you to make this personal. Braden pointed at Peyton. I found someone who appreciates me. I'm sure she appreciates what she thinks you own, Riley said quietly. Peyton's smile faded. What does that mean? Riley clicked the remote again. Property records filled the screen. Office buildings, hotels, apartment complexes, land. One after another. Showing everyone who actually owns them, Riley said. Each listing highlighted the registered owner. Riley Monroe, joint ownership, purchased through the Monroe Family Trust. Peyton's eyes went wide. You told me those were yours, she said to Braden. They practically are. No, Riley said, clicking again. A beachfront house appeared. I've been there, Peyton said, before she could stop herself. I know, Riley said. I invited my husband. Not you. Peyton froze. The house belongs to me. No. Another click. The penthouse. Mine. The vacation home. Mine. The vineyard upstate. Also mine. The whispers grew louder, faster. Braden's fists clenched at his sides. This proves nothing, he said. It proves you enjoyed showing another woman homes she thought were yours, Riley said. Peyton stepped away from Braden. He grabbed her hand. She pulled it back. Riley clicked again. Company records filled the screen, board resolutions, growth strategies, acquisition plans, everyone marked with her initials in the corner. A board member adjusted his glasses. Wait, these are the strategy documents that doubled our revenue last year. Walter nodded. They are. You wrote these? The man asked Riley. I did. I supervised them, Braden cut in quickly. You approved them after changing the font, Riley said. A few people laughed despite themselves. Braden's face went red. Walter finally spoke again, and this time his voice was heavy. My son presented the ideas. She created them. He looked at Braden. I asked you years ago if you deserved the praise you were getting. Braden stared at his father. Dad, I know what I told you, Walter said. And I also knew who really earned it. Peyton looked back and forth between the two men, her confidence draining fast. She whispered to Braden, barely audible. Is this true? He looked away. That was answer enough. Riley reached for another folder. I've shown you who built this company. She set it down gently. But that's not why we're here tonight. The room went still, waiting. 3 months ago, I promised myself something, Riley said. What? Braden asked, his voice tight now. That if you ever tried to destroy me in public, I'd let everyone see the man behind the mask. His mouth went dry. What's in that envelope? She didn't answer. She turned to the attorney instead. Mr. Dawson, when did I first contact your office? He opened his file. 93 days ago. The room erupted into murmurs. 93 days. She'd known for 3 months. Braden stared at her. You knew? I knew enough. You followed me. No, Riley said. You got careless. The attorney pulled out another stack of documents. I was instructed to verify financial transfers, business communications, hotel records, and related information. Peyton's breathing turned shallow. Braden, she whispered. He didn't answer. Riley pressed the remote. A timeline filled the screen. 3 months of dates, meetings, calls, hotel reservations, wire transfers. So you tracked my calendar, Braden said, forcing a laugh. No, Riley said. You left a trail. A photo appeared. Braden and Peyton walking into a hotel, the date stamped in the corner. Then another, Braden handing Peyton the keys to a penthouse. A yacht. A jewelry counter. A private dinner. Peyton turned to him. You said nobody would find out. They weren't supposed to, he hissed. Riley looked at Peyton, her voice steady. I never cared about the affair. Both of them stared at her. You didn't? Peyton asked. No. The room went quiet again, waiting. I cared about what the affair made the two of you willing to do. Text messages filled the screen. Peyton covered her mouth. One message, blown up large enough for the whole room to read. Braden, she'll never recover if I do it in front of everyone. Another. Asterisk Peyton. Make sure someone records her face when she cries. It'll be priceless. Asterisk. The ballroom exploded into whispers. Peyton shook her head frantically. That's not what I meant. Would you like me to keep going? Riley asked, calm as ever. Peyton stepped backward, right into the edge of a table. Those messages were private, Braden shouted. So was our marriage, Riley said. One more message appeared. After tonight, she'll leave with nothing. And below it, Peyton's reply. Next birthday, we'll celebrate together. Several guests turned away, disgusted. Walter shut his eyes, like he could no longer look at the sun standing in front of him. I could have exposed the affair months ago, Riley said. But infidelity wasn't the worst thing you did. Braden swallowed hard. What are you talking about? Riley clicked again. Expense reports. Invoices. Credit card statements, month after month. The attorney read from his file. Our independent audit found that over the past 11 months, more than $2 million in company funds were spent for personal use. The room erupted again. Those were executive expenses, Braden snapped. They were not, the attorney said flatly. Riley looked out at the guests. The jewelry, the vacations, the hotel suites, the luxury car leased for Miss Vance, the designer bags. Every purchase, paid for by Foster Industries. Peyton's face drained of color. She spun toward Braden. You told me those came from your own account. They practically did. No, Riley cut in. They came from employees who worked overtime for their paychecks. They came from shareholders who trusted this company with their savings. They came from families whose bonuses got quietly cut while somebody's expenses kept climbing. She turned back to Peyton, voice softer now, almost gentle. I believe you didn't know it was company money. I didn't, Peyton whispered. But you knew he was married, Riley said. Peyton had nothing left to say to that. Riley set the last folder down and looked around the ballroom one final time, at the guests, at the board members, at Walter, and finally at Braden. You wanted everyone to see who I really am, she said. So did I. She picked the divorce papers back up off the table, the same envelope he'd handed her an hour earlier. This time, her hands didn't shake. You'll get your divorce, she said. I'm not fighting it. I don't want this marriage any more than you clearly do. Braden blinked, thrown by how easily she said it. But you'll sign something else first, Riley continued. She nodded to Mr. Dawson, who produced a second set of documents. A full accounting of every dollar you took. Repayment terms the board has already approved. And your resignation, effective tonight. You can't do this in front of everyone, Braden said, his voice cracking for the first time. You did, Riley said simply. I'm just finishing the story you started. Walter stepped forward and picked up a pen from the table. He held it out to his son, not with anger anymore, just tiredness. Sign it, Braden. For a long moment, nobody in the ballroom moved. Then Braden took the pen. Riley walked out of the ballroom alone that night, past 200 people who would talk about this birthday for years. She didn't look back once. She had spent 12 years letting someone else wear the credit for everything she built, and one night learning exactly how little that had ever mattered to him. Some people plan a wedding for the moment they say yes. Riley had spent 93 days planning the mom.